Right, time to start getting into the spoilers. So, starting off, we have a few Lyath cards as well as some miscellaneous reviled slash generics, right? Basically, what's been spoiled to this point, because we're getting those sort of batches Lyath, Tough Nut, KO, and then Pleiades, I think, is the go, right? But it is definitely nice to start seeing exactly what's going on with the set, and boy oh boy, does Super Slam look to be very, very good, right? So, starting off with a generic, Kick the Hornet's Nest. When an opponent's effect puts this into your graveyard from anywhere, you get to create a Confidence, Might, Toughness, and Vigor token. This means that this can be triggered by discard effects, any mill to the graveyard right off the top of the deck, and of course Arsenal Destruction, though if this is put into the bash zone, this does not count as it entering the graveyard, so that won't trigger its destruction effect. So, at bare minimum, this is a nice yellow 6, which is definitely something that Brute is going to love, with that level of upside if you do actually get its effect off. Now, it is quite similar to a card we got in Heavy Hitters called Nasty Surprise, a nice 0-cost blue 2 power. When an opponent's effect puts this into your graveyard from anywhere, similar text, create an Agility, Might, and a Vigor token. So, of Nasty Surprise, you get 3, but the Agility is probably the premium there, being a nice go-again effect. Whereas Kick the Hornet's Nest, you get Confidence, Might, and Vigor for your next turn, basically. And then Toughness will come into play for the next turn of you blocking against your opponent, right? So if your opponent gets you to discard this on their turn, you won't be able to use the effect of Toughness, since it doesn't trigger till the start of your next opponent's turn. Up next, for the generics, we have Cutting Retort. When this attacks a hero, you may pay up to 3, destroy that many aura tokens with different names they control. If you do, this gets +1 for each aura destroyed this way, meaning it can only destroy 1 of each aura token, right? So that's very important. It also counts as essentially a 1 for 5, where you get 1 aura destroyed, 2 for 6, 2 auras destroyed, and 3 for 7. So it's somewhat fair stats balanced around again, that little bit of disruption depending on what you're hitting in terms of the aura tokens. Now, some prime targets, Spectral Shields, Rune Chance, Fealty, and Seismic Surges, but again, you can only destroy 1 copy of each token. Each token that you do target has to be uniquely different by name, right? So in terms of Fealty, for instance, Fang, if they're already at the 3, sure, you can put them back under, but you're not getting with the whole stack, you're not setting them back to 0 in that sense. Same for the Surges, Rune Chant, or Spectral Shields. Spectral Shields, probably the most relevant one, right? Because that's essentially getting rid of that extra ward, right? Which means that the breakpoints on Cutting Retort and the damage that goes over the top could be a bit more significant. But some other targets, Agility, Confidence, Might, and Vigor. Toughness has no relevancy whatsoever, because if Toughness was on the board for your opponent, it would have triggered at the start of your turn. Now, you also cannot target auras that you control, even if they are detrimental. So, for instance, if you have Frailty, and you play this from Arsenal, you can't destroy the Frailty because you control it, not your opponent, negating the -1 that it afflicts, right? Then, for our first Reviled card, we have Gang Robbery. Keeping with the aura theme, when this attacks a hero, steal an aura token they control. If you control 3 or more auras, this gets +3, right? So it's a nice 0 for 4 in yellow, if you control 3 or more auras. Now, that's not necessarily a hard ask in what we've seen from the Super Slam heroes, right? Lyath has his own way to create might through his hero ability, and then we have plenty of cards that generate other tokens. So I don't think this is necessarily going to be too difficult of an ask. Plus, the steal effect does, again, come into play where you get to yoink one of your opponent's tokens. And essentially, it has the same level of relevancy to Cutting Retort, right? But again, instead of being destroyed, you get its benefit for your next turn. Then, for our Reviled Guardian Lyath card, we have Leave Them Hanging, a nice 3 red suspense aura, instant, but 3 blocks. So, instant, 3 block card seems to be a Guardian mechanic, along with the suspense. So it's not just a Pleiades thing. We've seen a card in just Guardian, now we have one for Reviled Guardian, and of course one for Revered. But this card is very, very interesting. When it enters the arena, intimidate a target hero, making it a instant intimidate. So similar to something like Scaling Flashback, but you're paying 3, so essentially 2 cards to intimidate your opponent's hand whenever you get that priority window, which can definitely disrupt whatever they're going to play, right? Snag a reaction, or just ultimately, roll the dice and see if you can just completely wreck the turn at the start if they give you a priority window through something like activating equipment, for instance, right? And then for its suspense trigger, it has, when this leaves the arena, your next attack this turn gets +4, meaning it does take 2 turns to proc, right? Even if you play it on your opponent's turn, it loses the first suspense counter on your next turn, and then it will leave the arena with that second suspense counter on your following turn, right? So it's a 2-turn delay to get a +4, but really, it's the instant intimidate that makes this card really, really shine. Then next up, we have 2 steps ahead. So similarly to our suspense aura, this also is somewhat of a delay trigger. So at the start of your turn, destroy this, then create a confidence and 3 might tokens, meaning that it does actually have that extra turn of delay, right? You play it, the following turn it procs, you get your confidence and your 3 might, but the confidence and 3 might don't trigger till your following turn, hence the title 2 steps ahead, right? So the use of this card then is with those other cards that want to count aura tokens. So you get from this 2 unique aura tokens, but 4 tokens in total that could, again, activate the effects of some of those extra cards. Now, the confidence and might generates is also pretty nice, right? So both Lyath and Pleiades will be within this confidence bracket rather than our dominate-centric other guardians. And then, of course, 3 might just being a +3 is definitely really nice and makes it a little bit more stackable with some of those other guardian auras because you can line them up, right? You can be 2 steps ahead where you play this, following turn, set up some other stuff, and then you get all of those cards triggering at once. Then we have Truth or Trickery, which is quite the interesting card. When this depends, you may look at the top card of your deck and choose a color. If you do, the attacking hero guesses if that color is the chosen color, then they look at it. If they guessed wrong, they discard a card. So the way essentially this works is you have 4 different colors to pick from: red, yellow, blue, and I believe it's pearl for the unpitchable cards, right? Like Gorgarian Tome or Burn Bear, although Gorgarian Tome is the applicable one here for Guardian, right? But the result of this card is dependent on whether or not your opponent agrees or disagrees with you, right? For instance, say you look at the top card of your deck, you declare that it's a red card. Your opponent then has the option to agree, yes, it is a red card, or disagree, no, they don't think it's a red card. They then look at it, and depending on the results, again, this card resolves. So while you can essentially pick a random color by its wording, that just means your opponent simply has to disagree with you. Now, ultimately, this card is quite complex, so we will have to absolutely wait and see what the release notes are for a true breakdown of how it will function and whether or not, again, we are simply restricted to, again, the 4 colors that do appear currently in Flesh and Blood. After that, we have Cheap Shot as a reviled action. If you've been booed this turn, you may play this as though it were an instant. Deal 2 damage to a target hero unless they discard a card, making this a very good potential finisher, right? It's something that your opponent has to watch out for once they get to that low HP. There's a couple different ways that you can make use of this card. You can prevent arsenaling. So again, if your opponent's low enough, you can play this, force them to discard that card rather than being able to put it into their arsenal. You can use it just to, again, try to present that chip damage, making your opponent have to decide between arsenaling a card or, again, taking the 2. Or you can use it ultimately, again, nearing the end of the game as a way to force your opponent to always hold a card. Because if this is in your deck and this is a possible threat, then they have to be wary of sitting at 2 life. Now, as Lyath, you are always able to use this, essentially, if you have a card to pitch into your ability, because that is your boo trigger. So, instant, pay 2, tap, crowd boos you, turning on Cheap Shot as an instant to be played on your opponent's turn. Then we have Sadistic Scowl, right? And I think this is probably one of the other cards that sort of broke Talk a Big Game. So, Sadistic Scowl, nice 3 red. Next attack this turn gets +5, intimidate the target hero, go again, making this essentially a 3 for 8 value. You get +5 off the card itself, and you get that intimidate trigger to basically try and -3 from your opponent's hand. Now, of course, being intimidate, they will get it back at the end phase, but still it can be a great way to set up something big, especially, again, as Lyath, who's going to love those extra pluses to make up for what his hero ability does. Now, in conjunction with Bully Tactics, this would be essentially a 4-card clear your opponent's hand and then swing for 7, which is quite disgusting indeed. And then lastly, we have a whole mess of Clash cards. Now, for reference, Truth or Trickery is not Clash. It operates in somewhat of a similar sense to Clash, but it has those extra steps involved as well, so it is not Clash. It's not even revealing the card either, right, per its wording. It's you get to look, and then your opponent gets to look. But as for these cards, we have Fix the Match, the Old Switcheroo, and Overturn the Result. So for Fix the Match, when this attacks, search your deck for a card, then shuffle and put that card on top. So a tutor effect that then also allows you to line up a card for your clashes. Whenever a card defends this clash with the defending hero, the winner creates a might token. So the idea there could be that you go and find a nice big attack so that you will win your clashes, or you could also take the loss and use some of these other cards, like the Old Switcheroo. Instant, discard this next time you would clash with the target hero this turn. Instead, you reveal the top card of their deck, and they reveal the top card of your deck. If you win the clash, i.e. from their card, they discard a card, meaning that, again, through something like Fix the Match, you can find something very small, something even without power, since it is just search your deck for a card, not an attack action card, and then use the Old Switcheroo to try and line up its discard effect a bit more comfortably. Then we also have Overturn the Result, which is if you would fail to win a clash revealing this, instead you win the clash and the crowd boos you. So again, you could fetch a card like this out through Fix the Match, hopefully then lose the clash, but have Overturn the Results make you win, creating the Might token from Fix the Match and getting the brew proc from Overturn the Results, which as Lyath would then trigger another Might token generation. So there we go. That's the cards so far, I believe, right? I'm probably a little bit behind for video scheduling, but still, it is definitely shaping up really, really nicely, doing some very unique things as well, right? We have this alternative look at how we could, make Clash a little bit more interesting, exciting, change the decision points around, not to mention, again, just the overall sneaky, creative, cheaty-ish nature of Reviled front and center. So it does make me very, very interested to see what KOs are, considering, he's dubbed Cheeto. But other than that, let me know what you think. Excited for the cards. I think each set of cards that we do see for Super Slam is definitely making me more and more excited for the set, because there is a lot of cool and fun stuff going on that potentially, while goofy, is definitely creative and very, very interesting. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.